Did today's session with the South Korean president bring us closer to or move us further away from a deal with China?
Well, I mean, one of the issues for South Korea and other Asian nations is how much they're going to remain integrated with China in terms of their exports to the United States. So there are very important issues that need to be discussed with the U.S. If the U.S. demands that so-called rules of origin are changed, limiting the amount of Chinese content in East Asian exports to the U.S., that will really have implications for their businesses. They may have to create supply chains exclusively for the United States. So there are serious issues. I'm afraid today's discussion really touched on things that even the president seemed to be admitting were misunderstandings or misinformation. So I don't think we moved the ball ahead at all today.
Well, I want to ask you as well about this investment in U.S. shipbuilding that we heard about from President Yi. Last week on Bloomberg, we talked about this, as a matter of fact, with Gene Soroka. But it's something that I asked Christopher Smart about today. He's with Arbroath and used to be an economic advisor to President Obama about the current trade deal here between the U.S. and South Korea and what it might mean for investment in our shipbuilding. Listen to what he said.
Korea has committed to invest, I think it's $350 billion in the U.S., including in shipbuilding. In return for that, they were able to match auto tariffs that the Japanese government was able to secure at 15%. So on paper, at least, it looks like a very good deal for Korea in the context of what other countries have been getting.
How does Beijing feel about Korea investing in U.S. shipbuilding, Mary?
Well, you know, I think just on the surface, there's nothing wrong with South Korea investing in U.S. shipbuilding. South Korea has an advantage in shipbuilding. They would be a welcomed investor in U.S. to increase U.S. shipbuilding. I think the Chinese understand that. What is looming in the background, though, are coming charges on Chinese ships that dock in the United States, particularly those that are owned by Chinese companies. So China has to see this as an offensive move, even though on its face, the simple foreign investment by South Korea and the United States is not really a threat to them.
Interesting. Well, there's a lot more that we can talk about here with regard to China, including a potential meeting. Mary, you heard me discussing this with Wendy, and the president was asked today about it. Setting up a meeting, a bilateral, trilateral, I guess, meeting, U.S., South Korea, China. Then he even suggested Kim Jong-un from North Korea. Is this just happy talk in sort of an offhand remark in the Oval Office, or something that could actually happen?
Well, President Xi Jinping is not going to engage in any meeting, including bilaterally with President Trump, unless there's a deal that's already just waiting to be inked. It is completely unclear what we want from North Korea in the Trump administration, and if the North Koreans are anywhere close to being able to deliver on security guarantees or changes. They're very much involved deeply in the arms trade, and they're advancing in their technology. It's very hard to see what they think they could gain from some kind of moratorium or whatever it is the president believes that his special relationship with Kim Jong-un could provide for the United States. So right now, I'd have to say it sounds like happy talk. There's not going to be any such meeting unless there's a lot of diplomatic groundwork that gets done and real outcomes that the Chinese could sign on to.
Yeah, well, President Trump is still threatening more tariffs on China. I believe a 200% tariff was the threat today, if no magnets. The latest strategy, I guess, of preempting whatever the next conversation is going to be with Beijing. But we're already seeing China pull back, and I'm sure that you've seen evidence of this as well. I mentioned Gene Soroka. He joined us last week on Bloomberg, runs the port of Los Angeles, and talked about the shift in cargo ships that he's seeing since President Trump's tariff policies took effect. Listen to how he put it.
What we have seen is cargo emanating from China really dropping. Back in 2018, it was 60% of our portfolio. Today, it's 45% and continuing to decline. An uptick from Vietnam, Indonesia, Malaysia, Thailand. Not so much from India. And with the 50% tariffs that were slapped on that country, I don't see much change there yet. But definitely a shift to Southeast Asia.
Are those numbers a motivating factor for President Xi? Mary, how low can those numbers get before China needs to worry?
Well, I love Gene. He's always so clear on what's happening at the Port of LA. And I think that's just reflective of what we have seen and the shift away from dependence on the American market in China has been happening for a very long time. China got the message to diversify its trade, its import sources, its export destinations quite a while ago. The U.S. Hasn't been strategic about doing that, except in the case of China, where we raised tariffs early on in the first Trump administration. These kinds of threats are nothing new to President Xi Jinping. This is not going to move him. Yes, it is causing pain for particularly coastal provinces that are heavily dependent on export manufacturing. But this is not the future of China as Xi Jinping sees it. The Chinese have now, had a shot across the bow, a big one. We're going to withhold magnets if you continue to try to bully us. What they've gotten in response is more bullying. So they do have, tools that they can use to hurt the United States. And they're trying to get the U.S. to the bargaining table just as much as the U.S. is trying to get China. So this is a relationship that both sides need for now. But right today, we're not seeing any real change or breakthrough that will give us a hint as to where this is going to end up.
Yeah. So what happens first? The magnets start showing up, or we actually see a 200% tariff on China?
If we see a 200% tariff, we are definitely not going to see any magnets, and we're going to see more things disappear. There are many categories of exports where China is the dominant supplier, so they have more bullets in a sense to fire behind this one. I think that the negotiators, in particular Secretary Bessent and Trade Representative Greer, are doing all they can to make sure that they can get a negotiated settlement to the dispute that is to the liking of President Trump, and the Chinese side to the liking of President Xi Jinping. So whether they can make that progress in time to meet President Trump's, which seems to be an increasingly short fuse, we really don't know. That is a continuing source of great uncertainty, not only for the Port of LA, but for all businesses. But there's others out there, the 50% on Brazil, the increasing tensions that have been thrown at other countries like India. Those still remain out there, even as some uncertainty has dissipated now that we have deals with many of the advanced economies of the world, such as Japan, South Korea, et cetera. When the president holds a meeting like he did today, talking about new trade deals with South Korea, I think that makes companies worry even more about where's the best place to invest and source.